Hi, Tom Bewick here. I've been asked to reflect for a few moments on what anti-racism means to me. It was the Reverend Martin Luther King, a father of four, who said that he dreamt about his children growing up in a society where it would be the content of their characters, not the colour of their skin, that would be judged by other people. In Britain, we know that instinctively too. I genuinely believe that most of us strive towards that ideal, even if in our long history we have sometimes come up short. And let's be honest, we don't always meet that ideal. Because in my mind, it's not about where you're born, the community in which you live, how you speak, who you love, the God you worship, or the colour of your skin. Because true inclusion is never about division. Where we see one ethnic group being pitted against another, we need to call it out for what it is: racism. Where we see an individual treated differently for no other reason than some ethnic characteristic or the way they look, we need to take action, stand together and say, we just won't tolerate it. Of course, we also need to acknowledge where as a society we have advanced. Last week, I was honoured to meet Nadeem Zahawi, the first refugee, a minority ethnic person to be appointed Education Secretary in that department's 150-year history. It was great to meet him. British society is perhaps not as overtly racist as when I was growing up, but that is not the same as saying that racism does not still exist. So as we celebrate another National Apprenticeship Week, let's not forget some of the progress we've been making, but let's also challenge ourselves too. Like King, we need to keep on dreaming. Complacency is still our biggest enemy. By genuinely working together and yes, having those honest and difficult conversations, we can build an FE skills and apprenticeship system that is about the content of the curriculum, the diversity of what people can learn. But it's never about the colour of people's skin.
Thank you, Tom. That was some really, really powerful words there. Welcome. Happy Apprenticeship Week. My name is Gavin O'Mara, and this is Season 2, Episode 2, Anti-Racism in Action, and it's all about apprenticeships. It's National Apprenticeship Week, and thank you all for joining us. I hope you're having a great celebration of all things apprenticeships. We've got some fantastic guests this week, but my co-host, because this is a total collaboration between FE News and Black FE Leadership Group, is Stella. Stella, I wonder if you could join me in the studio. Hey, Stella, how are you?
Hey, Gavin, I'm cool, like you would say. How are you?
I'm very, very good. Happy National Apprenticeship Week.
Happy National Apprenticeship Week to you. Gavin, have you got any apprentices?
Yeah, 2.
I'm an apprentice of yours too. I'm learning how to be a host, so you got 3.
Well, I think I'm also an apprentice. Yeah, everyone's meant to be a learner, lifelong learner. So yeah, I'm very much an apprentice of you around how we can take action in anti-racism. So this is a really, really, really cool show for today, and we've got 2 really, really, really cool guests. They're also everyone is a good friend of Tom on here as well, actually, which is interesting because we've got Cindy and we've got Jennifer going to be joining us in a bit. I wonder if we could just set the scene because it's the 15th National Apprenticeship Week. This is all around Build the Future. But the show in this season is all around anti-racism in action. There's still a little way to go for us around thinking around anti-racism and apprenticeships, really, isn't there?
Absolutely. To build it's interesting that the theme for this week is Build the Future, because in building the future, we do have to build better. We know that there's really, Gavin, very low representation of Black people. And by Black, it's an inclusive term, as BFELG uses. It's for all those who have a lived experience of the effects of racism. So very low representation in apprenticeships. It stands at 12.5% nationally, when representation in college programs, in FE programs, would be at 30%. And in traineeships as well, it's 30%. And we know that traineeships are unpaid, but apprenticeships are paid. So when we are in the paid zone, it drops to 12.5%. That can't be good, and it's gatekeeping. It could be gatekeeping by the providers or gatekeeping by the employers, and we've just got to do better. And I think as well that the whole, it's 15 years of National Apprenticeship Week. We heard just very recently that years ago, when apprenticeships were being really boosted in the country, an apprentice said, I am embarrassed to be called an apprentice. And it will be interesting to hear our guests, in terms of how far have we come? How can we, and it's good that we've got Jennifer, because she's got, that standards remit, and Cindy has got huge experience in the apprenticeships and skills sector. So really looking forward to the show.
Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it as well. Why don't we bring our guests in? So we've got Jennifer Coupland from the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, and we've also got Cindy Rampersaud, who is Executive Director for many different organisations, and many people would have known her from a recent post in Pearson. So two absolutely brilliant guests. Why don't you could both join us into the studio? Hey Cindy, hey Jennifer, happy National Apprenticeship Week.
Hello, Gavin. Hello, Stella. Hello, Cindy.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. So I wonder if I could kick this all off, because no doubt you're hearing when using in the background, everyone, there's a thing called the green room. So when Jennifer and Cindy are all sitting listening in to the show in the green room there. Jennifer, I wonder if I could kick this off by apprenticeships are really, really interesting, really close to everyone's heart that is on this episode today, and we're also doing the pre-record video with Tom as well. I know it's very, very close to his heart. What are the opportunities and challenges that you see at the moment, Jennifer?
Oh, thanks, Gavin. And yeah, you're right. Apprenticeships are fabulous, and it's such a positive area to work in. I'm delighted every day coming into my job working on this agenda. I think that in terms of opportunities, particularly in relation to the racism agenda that we're discussing today, and making the programme more ethnically diverse, I think we've got a fantastic opportunity that employers that we talk to at the Institute, that we work with on the daily, really want to diversify their workforce using the apprenticeship route. So I hear quite often from employers that they are really concerned, in particular sectors, of course, that many of them are concerned they've got an ageing workforce, or that their workforce isn't representative of our society today. And they really worry that they're kind of missing out on a great well of talent. And they really do see apprenticeships as a route to change that skills pipeline that they've got into their industries and bring in people from a much more diverse range of backgrounds. So I think that is probably the biggest opportunity. I think also I'd point to levelling up. We had the skills white paper yesterday, and apprenticeships play a big part in the levelling up white paper. Apprenticeships play a really big part in the skills agenda, bringing more training to more people in a diverse areas of the country, to make sure that we're really opening up opportunities for everyone. I think the other sort of opportunities in the apprenticeship programme are really around the kind of quality of the programme these days. We've worked really hard over the last few years to make sure that people who are undertaking an apprenticeship can feel really confident that when they do go onto an apprenticeship, they're going to be really trained very well, and it's going to equip them for a really skilled career. And also that we've got great progression opportunities within the apprenticeship programme. So the programme has now really opened up opportunities in all sorts of careers. You can train to be an accountant now, a police officer, a nurse. You can train to be a lab technician, and these are kind of opening up those opportunities. I heard you on the call earlier asking if you employed an apprentice. I was talking to one of my apprentices yesterday, who is the first solicitor apprentice in the public sector. So, training to be a lawyer through an apprenticeship route. So the programme is really opening up opportunities. But as you say, there is a lot more that we can do. I think there is a big challenge around participation in apprenticeships. my sort of data is slightly different to Stella's. I think I've probably got more recent figures, but it's about 14% participation in apprenticeships from people from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds, and that sort of broadly represents the proportions of ethnic minorities in the workforce. So you could think that's fine and that's good, but actually it masks quite a difference in where those people are undertaking their apprenticeships. So there's quite an imbalance in different sectors across the economy. So we know that ethnic minority apprentices are overrepresented, if you like, in health and social care, for example, and really underrepresented in areas like agriculture and horticulture, in planning, construction, engineering and manufacturing. So we've got a real sort of disparity that we think we need to try to tackle.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting.
If I could jump in there, it's great to see a move from 12.5 to 14%. I think the point is really that it is still half of where it is in general FE in colleges. It's at 30%, and it's still less than half. And it's great to hear, Jennifer, where you talk about the employers. I think they are really key. It's how the joining up. How can we? And I know, Cindy, you're passionate about access as well. It's how can we open up? That. The employers who are keen are also, particularly when there is high, very, very high unemployment within the Black young communities, and there's a skills shortage. So it's how does this work? And the fact still is that apprenticeships are paid. So there's something about that link with employers, and you're right about the narrow band, because you don't see the Black apprentices in the higher paid apprenticeships or the higher levels. It is, as you say, in health and social care and business admin. So it's just it would be great at some point to hear your thoughts, Cindy, on how, and you, Jennifer, on how we can bring the employers together with these, if they are willing.
I mean, I think there's a couple of things. I think one is that, Jennifer makes a really good point about the representation level, which is representative of all of society, but you've got to drill down. And I think the drilling down at what's happening at different levels, what's happening in different sectors, and having the data so that you're holding all of those different employers to account and you've got visibility is what's really, really important. But I think there are a couple of things that I wanted to kind of add to the conversation. One is that, the root cause of underrepresentation, and we need to be quite careful. So I love the fact that we're celebrating solicitors and accountants. But what we also need to be careful of is that those employers that traditionally employed their graduate recruitment intake of solicitors and employers, and the kind of the more prestigious graduate trainee programs, for example, that what you don't end up doing is just substituting the same demographic, doing courses through graduate trainee programs with these more prestigious apprenticeships. And I think, one of the things that's happened over the last few years, and, Jennifer and the Institute have done a really fantastic job of this, is that the profile and prestige of apprenticeships have changed. And they are seen as more attractive. And as they're seen as more attractive, you've got to work even harder to make sure that you've got access and that you are getting people of minority ethnic backgrounds being able to access those opportunities. And I think there's a couple of things. I mean, it's great that we're having this conversation right now because it's so timely coming out of COVID, thinking about the global skills challenge. And we're talking about, a global skills gap that we're all facing that's impacting our economies. And yet we've got a massive talent pool that we should be tapping into. So it's really about how do we make sure we do that? And I think some of it, the onus is on employers and best practice, and also maybe things around data that I've talked about. But I also think there's still a stigma piece culturally with some communities. So education is valued, or, when I was growing up, it's like, get a good education. Stella, you might say the same. And what we were taught to see as a good education was that linear academic progression. So you have also got in some of the communities that there isn't the awareness of apprenticeships in the same way, and so we need to work harder at that. And I think people like Safraz Ali has done an amazing job with the Bame Apprenticeship Awards, where you have role models so people can see people who look like themselves doing entry level, higher level, really amazing STEM apprenticeships. And what they're doing is, what that does is it shows employers and it shows society that there's the talent, and there's some really fantastic talent, but it also helps within, I think, some of those communities, that people's own awareness of apprenticeships are increased, and what the opportunities might be. So I think we need to work harder at making sure employers are doing the right stuff and that we're measuring. But I think we also need to work harder with individuals and communities who might be excluding themselves, either because they think they're not good enough to kind of go on those programs, or they don't know about it, or they don't see it as prestigious. So I think we really need to kind of work at it from both angles, and more than two angles actually, and really tap into this amazing pool of talent in a time when we're talking about skills gaps and needing talent. Would be my view.
I think you make some really, really, really interesting points there, because number one, like you said, Cindy, it's the great reshuffle, the great resignation. Basically, we've got massive sort of gaps in different roles, and we've got to think, employers in particular. I think this one positive thing that's coming out of COVID, employers have got to think in a different way, and to be able to come out of their normal sort of the usual, like you said, around the levy has changed things around graduate schemes and stuff like that, but employers have had to change the way they're thinking around talent and what they're doing. And I think you made Saf and Issa have done some amazing stuff around the Bame Apprenticeship Awards and really raising awareness. I think you made an incredibly important point. How do we bring, looking at National Apprenticeship Week is such a brilliant time of celebration, but how can we use opportunities like this to be able to help different communities to understand the value of apprenticeships? Like you said, Jennifer, people can go on to becoming solicitors. Isn't it brilliant? We've got a route that goes all the way through, but at the same time, how can we make sure that is representative? The figures of 14%. How can we do more? Like, there's such an opportunity here. Do you know what I mean? I just think that I've got hope. Do you know what I mean? I've just got hope that we can do this change, because employers have got to think different in this. This is such an opportunity.
Can I just add
Jennifer,
one other thing before you bring Jennifer in, because I think also we need to think harder about young people, because when we look at the engagement around young people from minority ethnic backgrounds, and Stella alluded to this, it's even less. And so actively thinking about how we encourage awareness, how we encourage access, I think are things that we need to be intentional about, and we need to measure.
Yeah, no, definitely. Jennifer, I wonder if you could jump in, because it just feels like there's been such a shift with COVID, and now we're in this really interesting time when people are having to, employers in particular, are having to think differently. How can we grab that opportunity to be able to make this so we can level this up? We had leveling up last week, like with Michael Gove and his announcements and such, and now is National Apprenticeship Week. It's just like such beautiful timing. How can we line this up so as we can have more representation?
Yeah. So I think there isn't one single thing that you can do. I think I can see people nodding. It's a complex problem, and it's been going on for a long time. So it's going to take quite a concerted effort to change it. I think there are points within the system where we could make improvements in almost at every stage. So if we think about the information, advice and guidance that students are getting when they're making their choices, those key moments in their career, there's so much evidence that we're still not getting really fair and balanced and high quality information, advice and guidance to all students about technical education opportunities and apprenticeship opportunities. And it's unfortunately still the case that, you know, the more disadvantaged your school, the less likely you are to be exposed to a range of really inspiring employers, you know. And so there's a big thing there about, you know, if you can't see it, you can't be it. You know, we need to get more employers into schools talking about opportunities and really being clear that they do want to diversify their sort of skills pipeline, and they do want people coming into them from a range of different backgrounds. So I think that's really important. I think in the institute, you know, we've got a part to play. We're the organisation that works with employers to design apprenticeship standards and to design technical qualifications like T-levels. We have kicked off a project in the institute looking at, you know, how do we make sure that our the bits that we control, our products, our apprenticeships and our qualifications, how do we sort of proof them, if you like, to make sure that there's nothing in the design of those that is presenting a barrier to people from all different backgrounds taking them up. We're also working with our employer panels, who are the folk that design these things, to try to really make sure that those panels themselves are diverse, you know, and so trying to get our message out to people, to employers. You know, we welcome all sorts of people to come and work with us on the design of these things, to try to make sure that is flowing through into the broader system. So I think it's a multi-pronged approach. We're also doing some work as employers are designing apprenticeships and technical qualifications about the whole issue of racism and diversity and inclusion, and trying to kind of raise the awareness of that as the products are being developed, so people have it in their mind, and we're having a live conversation about it, because I think it's only when you're talking about these things, you know, that you create an opportunity to change the situation.
Can I jump in there, Gavin, as you would say?
Yeah.
I'm really, really pleased to hear from Jennifer, you know, because IFATE is an employer-led organisation, is so and help, you know, the guardian of the standards. So that the institute is so key. And I just wanted to mention that in the autumn of 2020, after the BFELG, following our open letter in August, pretty much September, October, Jennifer gave us an audience immediately following that open letter to talk to her about the agenda, and was really open and transparent about what needed to be done and what IFATE was going to do. So it's really so pleasing to hear about the journey that you're undertaking. And I think also you know, have you done anything with your workforce as well? Jennifer?
Yeah, so we've been doing quite a big project. I think I've mentioned to you before, Stella.
Yes.
Last year we set up a diversity and inclusion network within the institutes, very much driven by the staff within the institute themselves, and it's been just a fantastic injection of energy and creativity and talent into this space, to think about how do we make sure that the institute itself is a really diverse and inclusive place to work, where people can bring their whole selves to work, and that they can feel that it is a really inclusive workplace. So we're doing our own things internally as an organisation, but we've also got this big project that's looking at our products and how do we influence the system. So the stuff that we're in control of in terms of the standards and the makeup of those employer panels, but then trying to use our influencing and our convening power to stimulate the debate in this space, and to broaden it out, because other organisations also have a locus on this agenda and things that they can do differently, all better to affect change here, I think.
I mean, I think, it's interesting that you make the point about what the Institute is doing, because I think across the board, I think with COVID, there's been a power shift, hasn't there? The shift of the power has gone really on the talent space from the employer to employees and to talent, and talent is really choosing what they kind of expect from organizations that they go and work for. And that might be around zero emissions, but actually it's about culture. It's about can you see yourself in that organization? Is there representation? Is there a sense of belonging? And so one of the things I think businesses and organizations need to do as they look to kind of increase representation around minority ethnics in their organization, and apprenticeships in particular, which I think are so crucial to kind of getting us into that next stage of kind of economic growth, is I think they have to work hard at kind of having open conversations and really being and almost kind of walking the talk in terms of, are they representative of the kind of society around them, around their beneficiaries, and how do they show up? What do their websites look like? What does their kind of content look like? Because individuals and young people are choosing and they're looking and they're making choices in a way that they probably weren't as much in the past. And I think this is probably especially true for the kind of higher intermediate apprentices and talent coming in. They have choices. So yes, we've got to work harder at increasing the representation and attracting the talent. But part of that is against a backdrop where if you don't get this right, you're actually going to be missing out as an organization. Not you, the IFA, but organizations per se, Jen. I think that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Our time is nearly gone. I wonder if I could ask you one thing, which we've asked. I think in every one of these episodes in season 1 and now in season 2, if you could dream and dream big. We're in National Apprenticeship Week, and this is all around anti-racism in action. It's not just talking; it's what can we do. If you could dream and dream big, what would you want to see for the future in a year, 5 years time in apprenticeships, and having actively move forward with an anti-racism sort of policy? Jennifer, what would you want to see?
Oh, Gavin, goodness. So I think if I could dream and dream big, and it doesn't sound that big because it should just be happening, but it's a big thing. I would want to see a genuinely representative spread of people across all the different apprenticeships that we have in all of the different sectors and at all of the different levels, so that we had a genuinely fair mix of people from all different backgrounds being able to take part in the apprenticeship program, whatever their career aspirations, whatever sector they wanted to work in, and wherever they were joining, whether they were at level 2 or level 6 or wherever, that it was genuinely fair and it represented the shape and nature of the people across the country.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Cindy, what would you want to
say?
I
mean, absolutely the same thing, and it would be a bit surprising if it wasn't the same thing. So it's that point about all levels, all sectors, and real success and real talent kind of just thriving. And I guess what I would add, because it's repeating what Jennifer said, is I think probably a key enabler to that might be data. And actually starting to look at data and businesses holding themselves to account in the same way as they've done with things like the 30% club for women, or the kind of change the race ratio, which some of the CBI initiatives are driving. So you get businesses holding holding each other to account, their customers and their learners holding them to account, and their employees holding them to account, and you can see that through the data.
Yeah, that's really cool. Stella, what would you want to see?
Oh, what would I like to see? I would like to see our apprentices or people who have graduated from the system hold their heads up high, and our system be really up there, the best in the world. And I would like to see, just thinking about what I said earlier on, where years ago we had people say, I'm embarrassed to be called an apprentice. Or I'm embarrassed to be doing an apprenticeship that people are proud. This is the way. This is really the best route into employment and professional networks. The Association of Apprentices, which I'm just getting to know, which is a membership association which creates a community for the UK's almost 1 million apprentices. It gives them the social and broader elements often missing from the apprenticeship program. A brilliant organisation, million apprentices. It is led by apprentices, for apprentices, and I'd like to see that network grow and grow. That's my
yeah. That sounds cool. I can't dodge the question. I've asked everyone a tough one. I have sort of a medium and a long term. So long term, we don't have this conversation. No one can fix it. And I think we've had it from episode 1, season 1, that no one's got all the answers, but we don't have to have this conversation anymore. It's everyone is being represented and everyone wants to get involved. Medium term, apprenticeships are really cool. You've got the apprentice, you've got the provider, so college or training provider, you've got the awarded organisation, and you've got all of the ecosystem around it. Do you know what I mean? So like, you've got the institute, you've got like edtech organisations and like people, helping people with their English and maths. I just think it's really, 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 really interesting that we've got an apprenticeship. And I'm really proud that we've got 50% of our workforce at FE News are apprentices. So Leah, who's in the background there, is coming up to endpoint. Finley, who's did all of the socials for this year, is just starting their apprenticeship. And we don't need to go on about it because they're really brilliant at what they do. And I think everyone, like you said, Stella, everyone in this feeling is just like, this is really, really just an entry route to better start your career, but also progress your career. Isn't it fantastic? We've got progression routes that we can go all the way through to being a solicitor. Do you know what I mean? And for us, next step for there is going to be going into project management, and they had to progress on from there. And it's like a route to go. So medium term,
whilst earning, we mustn't forget.
And making and doing groundbreaking things like this, like living it. So it must be really cool for them to be able to see that, to be honest with you. But what can we all do together to be able to break this down so as it's action, that we can have representation to employers, that all employers are able to not even be looking at data anymore, that is this inclusive for everyone. This is for everybody. And I just think it's really, really, really cool. Happy National Apprenticeship Week, everyone. And I just think there's so much to do, but we've come so far, and there's just so much more that can be done. It's such an exciting time to be in. We've got the rubbish couple of years of just weirdness. And now how can we take that as the silver lining to make this change? And I just think the main part is going to be, personally, is employers are having to think differently. And if that means that we can have more representation through that, absolutely was worth that 2 years of pretty nastiness if it means we could have 20 years of real positive change. This is a total collaboration between the Black FE Leadership Group and FE News. Thank you everyone for getting involved with that. Jennifer and Cindy, thank you for taking time out of National Apprenticeship Week. I know it's really busy. And Stella, I can tell you want to be able to say something more there.
Oh, I just want to say thank you, Jennifer, for all that you do, holding up, the standards and your openness to the agenda. Thank you very much. And Cindy, thanks for flying the flag as always. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. Thanks for inviting us along.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Thanks, Gavin. Busy.
Happy National Apprenticeship Week.
Bye.